Hello, everybody. I'm really pumped to be here. I've been really impressed with Poland. This is my first visit to the country, and we've been out for pierogi, and we've been for vodka bars, and we've been to factories, and we've really got into the culture here as the speakers, and it's been really fun to interact with people and to get a general sense of like almost what the day-to-day life is like when you're actually in this country. And I'm really amazed, and I'm really feel gratitude to both the hosts and like the speakers and to all of the people that have come to this conference. I've had some great conversations, and I am totally pumped to have some more. So what I'm going to be talking about is CocoaPods and the road to 1.0. For us, 1.0 seems to be one of these kind of milestones that by that point we will actually support backwards compatibility. So as ever, we'll keep breaking things, and we'll keep trying to make it the most perfect system by just saying we're just going to have to change it. You'll see things like our DSL will change. We're probably going to be doing that pretty soon, so you'll have to rewrite some of your pods. But we always feel like this is actually going to be for the better of everyone. But once we hit 1.0, that's when we will not break things. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're actually going to do to actually get there. So before I start, it turns out there are people that have never heard of CocoaPods. So I felt it would be appropriate to at least have an overview of what the actual project is and what some of the smaller aspects of the system are. So by default, it is a dependency manager. That is what people know of CocoaPods. It is a way of saying, I want these dependencies in my project, and you just let CocoaPods go and do all the work. It will go and take them from the internet, pull them down, integrate them into your Xcode project, and we'll just kind of make everything work. And it does this by having a community of mostly open source Objective-C code. We do have quite a lot of C in there as well, but for a lot of it, it is people with public licenses so that you can do whatever you want with it, more or less, and still have a way of actually utilizing the code itself. On top of that, we also support things like private pods, which are a way of separating out like libraries internally into your projects. We have a lot of big named companies now that are actually using CocoaPods to separate out like internal libraries, external libraries, and try and do a lot of things that previously it was a lot of copy and pasting or using Git submodules that required a lot of updates. CocoaPods makes this a lot easier, and it also provides the ability to effectively do specific versions, which can get quite difficult when you're trying to do multiple submodules. So it works we use the Ruby Gems platform, which is kind of cool because you're downloading a dependency manager via a dependency manager. And that's mainly because a lot of us are Ruby programmers. So I did Objective-C straight out of university, then I went to Ruby, and then I came back to Objective-C. The same with Alloy, the same with Fabio. We've all been and done like Rails or big Ruby projects, and you've come back from these and thought, it was so easy to like do my dependencies, so why isn't it that easy to do it in Objective-C? And that kind of frustration meant that we started building this tool. So the tool exists, and it will go to what is a central repository at this point in time of pod specs. These pod specs are like recipes that tell you how to download your actual code, what kind of source files they'll be, whether they'll have ARC or any of these other compiler flags. They can obviously have their own dependencies, so the dependency graph can just get crazy, as we'll talk about later. And overall, you can really just go to this one single place to have a look at what CocoaPods there are available. So you then take that, you write a list in your Xcode project, and once you've done that, you can just run a command that will install it, and it will pull all your external dependencies, create a separate project for them. So one of our like main tenets is to make sure that we do not try and touch your actual Xcode project unless we have to. So right now that involves we add the pod file into your project, and we'll try and use something called XC config files. which are a way of doing the usual compiler flags, but actually having it set in one file so that it's not actually touching the internals of your project. We've been looking at maybe moving the acknowledgements file into that too, so it keeps all of your licenses in one place, and currently that's kept inside the project of CocoaPods, but ideally I think that should be moved into yours. So here's one for mine. This is an app that I build, and to quote someone that I work with, he says, I'm very much not invented here. So if there's anything that I can outsource to someone, I will not only outsource it, I will then go and send them a bunch of pull requests to make the changes that I want. Yeah, this is how I got big into open source, because I don't believe in actually writing everything myself. I believe in trying to always work with the community on something. So that's why I do CocoaPods, and that's why I have so many CocoaPods myself, and that's why I keep sending pull requests to people to help update their own. So, with the kind of bio of what is CocoaPods over, I just wanted to give you a brief on who actually makes CocoaPods, because it's quite interesting. It's an odd team. So it starts out with just 3 of us. These are the guys whose names that you see on the bottom of the websites. There's Fabio at the end, and there's Aloy, and then there's me. We consider ourselves like, we're in there day to day. Every day now, I probably spend about an hour or 2 just dealing with CocoaPods. This could be dealing with issues from people making requests. It could be bug reports. It could be the websites. It could be dealing with the Google group. There's a lot of work just involved in actually keeping the community running. We then work with another 8 people who are in our internal chat. That means that we can kind of discuss and get things going. A lot of the times we don't have the time to do everything, and our expertise is not always what you need in order to finish everything and make everything work right. So like, I wonder if I can use this pointer. Oh yeah, so this guy, Andy Myers, is like the quietest designer you'll ever meet. He's actually one of the guys who's done a lot of the design work with me. Me and him went to school together when we did design, and he's the only designer that I can think of that just works in open source a lot. And it brings me so much happiness to not have to rely entirely on myself to do all the design work for CocoaPods. And then there's another guy who definitely deserves a mention, who's called Keith Smiley. And if anybody's ever done any community work with CocoaPods, you'll know this guy. He's a student, and he spends every day just working on the specs repo, so the centralized place for CocoaPods, and he will sit there and merge in your pull requests. He'll help you understand where you've gone wrong or what you can do better, and we don't even talk to him that much. He just sits there and does this every day. He made an iOS app that he just uses to actually deal with the GitHub API to actually find common causes and just make it work, and it's brilliant. So then after those, we come to the larger team. These are people that have contributed to CocoaPods, the tools itself. I think there was somewhere around 80 odd people here. These are people that we've done pull requests with. These are people that have write issues. These are people that have really kind of made CocoaPods into the community as it is today. And that's it's quite a lot of people to keep managing and assign issues. Pull requests can take months, and we have to make sure all the tests pass and that it works with the older versions and that it works with Ruby 1.8 and 1.9 and 2. So we're seeing a lot of work from a lot of people, and it's very cool. And that doesn't even bring us on to the real stuff, which is how many people we have actually had contributing to the actual specs repo. If I recall, this is somewhere around 2,000 or 3,000 contributors that we've had. When I talked to the GitHub guys, they said it was one of the 4th most active repos in terms of raw numbers. I've got a tweet somewhere that tells you the exact number. And it's incredible. It's incredible to think that we have this many people and people are interacting so much, and we have this we have one singular Git repo that people they take the time to make the pull request to push in their new CocoaPods, and it's really it's really a community effort. As much as like I'm working on the tool all the time, it wouldn't be a tool if there wasn't so many pods, and if there wasn't so many pods, then people wouldn't be using it. So I just wanted to give a little bit back to show how many people are really contributing. So the interesting thing here is then, if we're moving quite fast, we have a guy who more or less works full-time on CocoaPods, the project. Both me and Alloy also get paid to now work on CocoaPods. And so that means that we've got like office hours to effectively do. And it's kind of, it moves fast. And as I said earlier, we break things. So some of the interesting things are then what ways do we try and make it easy for everybody to keep up to date with the project? And the first one is part of our new redesign and the new website is trying to find a better way to have more permanent communication. We used to just use the Twitter all the time and our changelog, which you'll see later, which are great ways of getting details out, but Twitter's such a temporal medium. Like you can't really search Twitter to go and find something that we'd said before, and it becomes very hard to actually Google search for something and find the author's exact opinion during the creation of it. And one of the cool things about that is that it's meant that we've been able to have like really detailed and interesting and totally readable blog posts about releases, and we get to give our own opinions. Like this is Fabio saying, I really like this new feature that we've built. It's something called Pod Try, and I'll get into that a bit later. But it gives us a way of like communicating to everybody like some of the motives behind what we've been doing, like why something's breaking or why we had to make a decision that might have been hard. You'll see that with social media. And the blog gives us a sense of permanence about what we say. And I've been really happy with the traffic that we've been getting and the fact that I can talk to people and they'll already know quite a bit of context about what we've been doing. So then the other ones are, of course, Twitter. I recently moved our Twitter feed to be not just every new CocoaPod, but to separate that out into CocoaPods new pods. So that meant that our actual Twitter feed is now quite low traffic. So we're getting, well, if you look there, it's about one every day, which is usually information, which means that people can follow the CocoaPods feed and not just feel like they've just got this big spam of every new library. And I've been really happy with that because I actually don't follow CocoaPods feed, but I did for this screenshot because I have other ways, because I have to watch all the issues, so I see them all coming through. But the CocoaPods feed is a really good Twitter feed to follow if you're interested in what's new. We've been really trying to push getting this sort of information out. Another great way is that we force you to actually know that something's changed. Every time you update the gem, you get a full list of the changelog, as we put the breaking things right at the top, so you see that straight away. We'll tell you what's changed, who's changed, where's the commit set, so you can go and look and see actually what underlying principles changed. And it's given us a lot of, it gives you a lot of information the moment that you're actually interested. So every time you do a pod install, if it's outdated, we will say to you, hey, it's updated. And as part of that process, then we know when you're actually sending us reports, whether you're using an old version of CocoaPods, because when we add new things to DSL, it can occasionally crash older versions. And I feel like this is a nice way of just giving people news. And then finally, there is the definitive place, and that is our changelog. We take a lot of time and effort to make the changelog relevant and to the point, and that every time there's a pull request, someone says that they've done it. This is the source of the entire history of CocoaPods. It's long, it's beautiful, and you can go and see how we've evolved, what we've done. It doesn't really tell you our motives, which is in part why I built the blog, but it does tell you a history, and it is kind of interesting to see this. So then I want to have a little discussion about what is new, because this is the way that we can see the direction of the overall project. So in my mind, in the past 2 months, there's been really two major events. There was the new design, which you're obviously seeing, and there's been a lot of work on the tooling involving moving authentication off GitHub and into something that we have a bit more control over. And this is really great for people who actually want to make pod specs, because instead of having to write this whole pull request dance, you'll be able to do it all in one command. And to do that, well, we started by building plugins, which is great because we didn't even build plugins. We wanted it, but no one spent the time to do it until we got a pull request from someone who just did it, all of it. And that was it. So then CocoaPods supported plugins, and it was brilliant. It was absolutely amazing. It's one of those times where you forget that, like, it's not just a small dev team. It's actually someone you've never heard of coming in, learning Ruby to do a single feature, and then never heard from him again. Seriously. And the only reason he wanted to do it was so he could do pod open, which comes next. So we only have a few plugins at the moment because there's not that many hooks in from CocoaPods, but there's enough that you can actually start doing things. So in this case, Pod Browse AR Analytics will open up the actual page for AR Analytics. So that's that will probably redirect to the GitHub repo if you don't have your own website for it. Then we had PodDoc, which is the same thing, but it'll send it to CocoaDocs unless it has its own documentation site again. These are sort of useful in the day-to-day life. And then one of our really cool ones is PodTry. But I'm going to get into that a bit later because that's one of the new big features that I've been really happy with. So what we have is the authentication server. We've been talking about this and for a long time. It was about a year and a half ago that we stopped accepting people into the CocoaPods organization to have push access. And that was because we were starting to work on this. So it's been a nice long time. But what Trunk does is it's a centralized authentication server. It is a way of saying, I am Orta. I have access to edit only my own pod specs. It means that you can just do pod push, which will push your pod spec to us. We will then generate a pull request from an automated bot that will then get automatically merged if it passes verification. So you will actually still get Git contributor status, but it will be entirely automated, and you won't even see the actual pod spec up there, but you'll see a JSON representation of the pod spec. So I don't know if you were reading the release notes earlier, but we have a tool called Pod IPC, which is inter-process connections, and that's the way that we kind of standardize a way of talking between the server and between CocoaPods. And we've been having this in for about 6 months now. And every time someone has been using Pod Push, because it's available to people with commit access, we've been actually duplicating it onto the server. So it's built at the moment as a plugin. So this is public, so you can actually go and see CocoaPods Trunk and get a feel for how the authentication works, how your user works. This is really great for us because it means that no one could edit AF networking, which is really cool for us because that has happened a few times. And if you take the most popular library in a community and then just change it to point to your own, then it's not really something that we want to see happening anymore. And the other great advantage of doing it this way is that we suddenly find ourselves with an API. So these are actually these are JSON files that represents each pod. Every single version will have a JSON representation. So this means that to some extent now there is an official API when this is fully out that will just be the normal URL, and you just add raw to it, and then suddenly you've got the JSON representation for a pod spec. So we'll be going like, for us, that will be the canonical way of saying, this is what the pod specs look like, and this is what you can do with it, which I'm really happy with. So then on top of that, we have the design. You've been seeing this for a while now. I think I got it out. I got it out officially on my birthday, November 24th. So this has been a process that I think it's taken me and Andy Myers about 8 or 9 months to get out. That's involved like thinking almost everything from scratch. There's a few good blog posts about this, and it's been a really nice experience to kind of try and rethink how we do documentation and how we do search on the website and how we do all these tools, and how, just even the reflection on how we've changed the logos to be very simple and not this ginormous CocoaPod logo. And I'm actually referencing all the old colors in my shirt right now as a homage to the old way. And the design has been cool because we've been able to reuse it in different things. So I've been running a series of community events called CocoaPods. These are a set of talks where we get 8 people to speak about what they do. We've been doing it around the world. We've got one in London next week, in Berlin 2 weeks later. I did one in New York a month ago. And it's been really nice to start trying to rethink a lot of the side projects that could be related to CocoaPods. And by doing it under the design, it's meant that we've been able to make them look nice and give them a smart and consistent image. On a similar aspect, we've been looking at T-shirts. Like, a lot of people always ask, how can I donate to CocoaPods? And we always say you can't. But what you could do is either request a feature and pay for one of our developers to build it, or pretty soon you'll be able to grab a T-shirt. My personal favorite is this one. They're really cool. It's like we've been playing with both the logo and like this idea that what you're doing really is you're copying files over. So there's some cool metaphors in there. So, roadmap. We've talked about a little bit what we've done, and what's been happening very recently, and to expand on those further into where we're going and what we actually need for 1.0. The hardest one of these, and I figured I'd start first, is an iterative dependency resolver. Now, dealing with dependencies can be very simple if you have them in exact order and you give specific versions. Once you stop having specific versions and you start having you can only have it if it's a project that supports iOS 7, or your target market is only for iPhones or iPads or only for the Mac, then CocoaPods breaks down a little bit, because we demand that you put your most strict dependencies above it. We actually, if the dependency resolver can't succeed, it will tell you should maybe move this dependency up so that we know exactly which dependency should be more important. And in order to do this correctly, we need to do a lot what the Ruby guys do with a thing called bundler, which is, again, it's creating an iterative dependency resolver, and it's a really complex thing, and we've been putting it off for at least 3 years now, but that is like the major feature that we need for 1.0. We're probably going to finish up our work on sandboxing. We've been using Apple's sandbox tool. Currently, it's been in since 2.0, so that's probably about maybe a year. And this currently makes a version of CocoaPods that can only access your project directory. So that means that currently, because CocoaPods executes code on your computer that's been downloaded from the internet, you don't really know what's been ran there. Every time you do a search, for example, we effectively run every single pod spec to see whether it matches the search query locally. And any of those could contain arbitrary Ruby code that could do anything to your computer. Which is in part why we moved to JSON, and as well as why sandboxing exists. So by only giving you access to project folder, then there's no way that things could... There's no real relative way that things could break. Hopefully. The next big one, and this one is so cool, and it's not there yet. There's a prototype that's available as a plugin, is the pod edit command, and pod edit is that kind of answer to what everybody always says. And as you saw on my pod file earlier, I have a lot of custom forks of projects, and really what you should be doing is contributing back to the original. So we made it quite easy to contribute back to people's open source repos. You'll be able to say something like pod edit AF networking, and that will take your current AF networking and it'll switch it into a version that you can reliably edit. You can reliably then push back up, and you can reliably send a pull request back. It's a beautiful idea. We're working on it, and it's one of those big kind of things that people keep talking about when they're talking to us about CocoaPods. Like, I really like CocoaPods, but if I want to go and edit it and send a new version, I have to go and download it. I have to clone it. I have to do a local version. I have to make edits, and then I have to send them back up. We want to automate that process as much as possible to encourage as many people as possible to contribute back to large libraries. That's how CocoaPods itself works, and that's really how a good community works. As I said, it's a nice tool. I'm really excited to see this come out and see people actually using it. Big one, pod analytics. Everybody wants pod analytics for very good reasons. Like, I would love to know how much my libraries are even being used. We have no idea. We can look at the search traffic and give a good metrics for what libraries are being used, which, in case you're wondering, was indeed AF networking and then Facebook. And so we've been trying to make it, and it's not entirely there. We're thinking of doing analytics in actually the CocoaPods tool. So then every time there's a pod install, we get a ping, but specifically for only your open source code. We don't really want to know that what your private library names are or what's going on behind the scenes, but we do want to know about the open source stuff. So we've been trying to, we have someone with an active pull request about this at the moment, but they've kind of gone dark for the past month, so don't really know the direction it's been going. But ideally what we'll be doing then is we'll have this analytics. This analytics will tell you your downloads, it'll tell you your relative popularity. Ideally we won't be presenting this as a leadership board, so you'll try and sit there and think, oh, I've just got to beat that other networking library. But there's definitely space, and I think it's a really important tool, and I think it'd be really good and encouraging for actual library authors, because you're just kind of throwing it out into the wind, and the only chance that you actually get feedback is either if people write issues or pull requests. And that's good, but it's also bad, because it means that the silent majority are using it, and you'll never know. So it really will help people to actually know and understand the numbers and whether people are using their libraries. Talked about this beautifully earlier. The specs repo will be switching to JSON. So that will mean two major things. People won't be sending us pull requests anymore. You'll have total control yourself over the actual pod spec. So you won't have to send us a pull request, and we won't have to tell you how to fix it, because the automated tools now are pretty solid at telling you where you're going wrong. It will mean that Keith won't have a job. It will mean that we can just trust the source a lot better. And because of that, people will be able to use it as an API. We will be using it as an API on CocoaPods.org. And it also means it's safer, because JSON is not something that can execute code. And it's very cool. And we're using it right now. So that demo that you saw, the screenshot that you saw earlier, that is actually real data that's come in from people using our actual tool. We're getting like 1 or 2 a day. Some of these are very complex libraries, so I use it for my own. It's an analytics tool that has something like 14 separate dependencies, depending on what subspecs you use, because it tries to do it for like test flight or Mixpanel or whatever. And the actual JSON representation of this pod spec is quite complex. There's only 2 or 3 more complex CocoaPods out there, and some of those are like as big as like our dependency manager internally to CocoaPods. But it's there and it's working, and if you're interested, you can go and have a look. So with that, we'll be expecting to have an official CocoaPods API. The official CocoaPods API will do a few cool things. So for one, we already have search. We have a very fast search. It's really cool. You'll have seen it on the website. And we're in the process right now of documenting it. We've just moved the server to search.cocoapods.org, and we're going to start making it available to everyone by using cores. That means that anyone can just make requests to it and get data back. We have ways of giving you just lists of the CocoaPods IDs, or giving you the full syntactical sugar that we use on CocoaPods in order to just give you back some of the useful data for a small subset of search results. And we'll also then be trying to provide additional metadata on top of this. So as you'll see a little bit later, I've been spending a huge amount of time thinking about search for CocoaPods and trying to understand, how do you rate a library? It's hard, and we've only just started the process, but we'll be then able to give you things like, straight from here, we can tell you how many forks you've had, or how many stars you've got, or we'll tell you, obviously, install numbers and download count and last recent versions and all those kind of stuff that might become a little bit more difficult to work with, or that you might have to go and do yourself. We'll be providing a solid API for that. And on top of that, and one of the favorite things is we'll be handling webhooks for people. So right now, some of our major projects that exist are CocoaDocs. CocoaDocs gets it uses the official Git webhook, and that means that I get raw access to every single commit that changes. We also have the feeds, which generates the Twitters. All of these will be moving to a singular service that will work from a same webhook. So we'll totally be dogfooding this before anybody gets to touch it, and it should be solid and workable. And this is all part of Trunk. So when someone submits a correct pod, then we'll know, and we'll send out a webhook to anyone that's interested. So this means things like the CocoaPods badges will be able to use this API. People that are interested in building something like Ruby Toolbox that will then be able to give install information, or saying this is relevant to you. They'll be able to do all sorts of things with this. Really, really excited for the webhooks API, especially because I'll be moving CocoaDocs to do it straight away. And we've also got another plugin that's coming out soon that I think I get to later. So again, I do a lot of the web stuff, which is in part why this is a little bit focused towards that. And some of the things that we've been thinking about of where we can take the website is trying to find the search. Obviously, that's a huge, important thing. But we want to be able to make it so that each pod has its own representational page. So there you can find everything that you'd need to know about CocoaPods, specifically there, inline, in the search, and it's going to feel amazing. Ideally, you should never need to leave cocoapods.org until you find the right result. And we do that by doing the search context, which is amazing. And then we've got this sneaky little thing that's come in, which is push notifications. This just started working this morning, and we've not turned it. There's not been any work on the website itself to make it so that it's accessible to people. But effectively, you can star a CocoaPod, and in Safari, we will then tell you, hey, do you want to get notifications when this CocoaPod is updated? It's definitely something that, there we go. It's definitely something that I'm interested in having, and I'm sure a lot of people will get quite a lot of good karma out of this. So the final search stuff. Some of the kind of interesting implementation details here is that, just like with CocoaDocs, inline readmes, so as you're searching through results, you can just see the full context. That's usually a great way of deciding whether this is a relevant project for what you're looking at. We'll be able to provide relative popularity, give you the simple stars and forks. We'll be able to tell you when was the project started, how long has it been in existence for, and that's also sometimes a good relative way of figuring out whether the CocoaPod is useful to you. We'll be able to tell you the release cycle. So, how often is this project updating itself? What are the related projects? So AF networking is used in everything. So you go to there and you get a nice list of all the things that use AF networking. It'll show you screenshots. We've had that in our CocoaPods API for a while now. So it'll be out and you'll be able to see, well, you'll be able to get a similar experience to what you get on the website Cocoa Controls, which is a nice way of looking over and browsing through views. And then we'll be trying to improve attribution. So as you'll see in a second, we've been working on making it so that we know what your Twitter feed is. We know what the website that represents getting back in touch with you. And we've been debating, and it's still not been decided, whether we should allow comments, because comments provide a lot of interesting context, but of course you then end up with like YouTube-esque comments, which are not so valuable. So on top of this, I've been looking at CocoaDocs version 2. It was originally CocoaDocs that created the entire redesign because I felt extremely limited in the way that I could actually design with CocoaPods related projects. And so CocoaDocs started the redesign, but it is actually the last to get one. So currently, we've been trying to emulate Apple as much as possible on CocoaDocs, but I don't feel that is the most appropriate for a lot of our libraries. Apple work on very large libraries with lots of complex and moving bits. A lot of the CocoaPods that we get are not that. So we've been thinking of different ways of presenting your actual code and your comments to make them more relevant for smaller things. Want to improve doc sets. I don't know if people are using this, although my analytics and my S3 account hosting says that people are. And we want to, at the moment, they're all auto-updating. They're always the latest version. And this has never been a problem until AF Networking 2 came out. Because a lot of people, myself included, still stuck on version 1 because it's a rewrite basically for 2. And so a lot of people then had the documentation for that as a doc set for things like dashes and in Xcode, and suddenly that didn't work because it was now version 2. So we want to fix that. And I want to deal with error handling. I think this is just because it's me and I get to see all the issues, but it always feels like CocoaDocs is breaking. And I'd like to give more error reporting back to the people that are actually interested in why it's breaking. So to start wrapping up, I've been working on this social media URL. This is arguably the longest we've discussed a feature, and that took less than half a minute to implement. But it's new, and a lot of people aren't using it yet because it's only been out for a week or two. I've been starting to push people to do this. If we get your social media URL, we can start giving you context back. So let's say you do a tweet. Well, let's say we tweet out that your library exists. If we know that you've got a social media URL, we'll include that in your library. So suddenly, you're already going out to get to see everybody via the Twitter feed, but now it's also the library is mentioned directly to you as well. So when people start conversations with on Twitter about actually the library, which happens quite often, you're actually automatically included. They don't have to go and find you. They don't have to go and say, this is the guy that correlates to this project, and tweet, oh, this is a really cool library, which is what I've had to do a lot of times. That's just the start. I mean, that's what we already have. And with the new website, that will be even more relevant. When we start having it as an API available for everybody, then everyone will start to see that, Matt Thompson made AF Networking, Orta made AF Networking. You can just instantly reply. I think we're going to find a lot of uses for this. So I really, really want to encourage people to use this as much as possible. It's not much effort, and it's part of the new templates, but because most people copy a pod from an older one and then edit that, you have to actually think when you're using it. And I feel that's me. So thank you for having me here, and it's been a pleasure talking to you guys. So we have time for questions, and we have a microphone. So anybody that has a question should wait for the microphone to come, and then we have it all recorded, and it's all working beautifully.
Yeah. You've said about pod try command, and you didn't.
Oh, I thought I had it as one of these.
Explain that.
Sorry, everybody. That was sorry. It's a really exciting thing. All right, pod try is beautiful. Basically, what it does is it will generate a temporary Xcode project for you so that you can actually test the CocoaPod there and then. And it'll put it in your temp files, so you can just do pod try OR stack view. It will pull it in, make you an Xcode project or use the one that was available for when they were building it. And it will let you be able to just go straight into a library and look at the actual library from inside it. And it will just make it really easy for you to actually look at a library and test a few out. I've been starting work on a collection of screencasts that's going to turn into like a weekly thing where I use pod try to pick a pod, do pod try, talk about how it works internally, and like that's it. It's going to be really interesting, and I think pod try is really essential in like testing things out without having to clone the repo, go and open it, and make sure you do a pod install to make sure it runs. Yeah, that's pod try. Anyone else? Wow, looks like I just floored everybody except for forgetting something. So, thank you again. I'm obviously available. Was that a question? Ah.
So the big problem of CocoaPods is that it's based on GitHub repos. So are you thinking about what happens if the repos
go down?
Yeah, it's just down.
Yeah. It depends. There are now services. I think there's 2 of them that exist to do like backups for you that you can pay for. You give them your pod file and they'll allow you to. They'll have it as a separate repo that will actually host all of your pods. There's been a lot of discussion about us hosting the code, but we're still not sure if that's something that we want to do, because that could put us in legal liabilities, or just maybe even the hosting costs might kill us. But it's definitely something that's a problem, and I agree. And we do have it only on one source, but that's mainly because activity is on GitHub. Everybody is free to use their own things. Like we support not just Git, but Subversion, HTTP, HG, Mercurial, all of these little libraries, but everybody just uses GitHub. So the answer is I don't know. I don't think that we're going to go forward to try and host the code ourselves. A lot of places like Ruby Gems have had problems with that. So that's why a lot of the newest generations of dependency managers like NPM or Grunt all seem to feel that the actual authors should host their code, whilst the dependency manager is quite separate. And we saw that recently there was a Ruby Gems hack where someone came in and they have no way of knowing what libraries might have actually been touched. By us actually using Git and GitHub, we can have a full commit log and see what changes have happened between versions. So there's still a lot of advantages for us in using GitHub. I honestly believe that there is definitely a space for someone to make a product that that hosts them, the entire of them, and you can have as a duplicate pod repo in there. So I don't know. Any other questions? Oop. Okay, it looks like this time we are closing down. All right, thank you. I'm available to grab. I'm really chatty, as you'll find. And yeah, come talk to me. Tell me your problems. That's usually what I'd like. If you come tell me that CocoaPods is ace and it's changed your life, I've heard it a million times. But yeah, thank you. And thanks to the host for having me. Enjoy.